Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. Yes, I'm around the quiz area. It's still the same location. I just didn't want to interrupt a baseball match that seems to be going on around here, so staying away from the main building. Everyone seems to be, out and about because it is sunny. I was even told specifically I do not need my jacket, which is absolutely true. I mean, my goodness. Just realised that there are a couple of people who are shirtless here, so I'm not going to pan around anymore. Not a good idea. So, yeah. And I'll stick to the shade, because, we'll... I guess we are kind of, well, we're entering spring mode, I was going to say. We're entering summer mode. It's more spring, summer term, I suppose. There's always interesting terminology, because, the winter term for schools is mostly autumn. The spring term is mostly winter, and the summer term is mostly spring. But anyway, I guess it's because, they end up concentrating on the holidays of the specific, yeah, you know what I mean. But yeah, what was I saying? Ah, yes, the quiz. There was another one. But just before I get into talking about that, a little bit of a story that's going to come in slightly later. So, I've already talked about how there was, there were complications regarding the parody song for March. It is the second time that I have shadow dropped something in the middle of the night on off-peak hours. It's not reflecting well in terms of the performances of those videos, but there is, of course, the fact that I was going to say, yeah, there is, of course, the silver lining that the Mylène song in question actually did pick up a little bit after the fact. Honestly, being around the same level as some of the lesser watched AFMAO songs from last year, which I'm okay with, considering it was a deviation that no one was expecting and it came out at a random time. But anyway, there's a car about to pull in here. The point I'm trying to make is there were complications choosing that because the Mylène song was almost not what I went with. There was another option. There was another option which was a song I've wanted to do for some time, ever since Netflix recommended Sonic Prime to me randomly. I didn't know that the show existed. It was still ongoing at the time, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll check this out. And I did, and immediately, within the first episode, Sonic ended up in a place called New York City. And I thought to myself, well, isn't this a prime opportunity right here for a parody of the song Empire State of Mind? If you don't recognize that title, it's the one where the chorus is New York, concrete jungle where dreams are made of. That one. That's the one. New York, New York. That's not the only time that's happened, I think someone did a Newport State of Mind for the city of Newport, actually. Similar idea, of course. But yeah, I loved that idea. Probably one of the times where, the plan for a song, I guess, outweighs my affinity for the project in question. Although I say that, obviously some of the songs from last year were from, random one-off AFMAO videos that, despite the fact that I'd not despised them nearly as much as Aiden did, they still ended up, they weren't exactly my favourite projects either, as I reflected within some of the lyrics. But either way, that was the plan. I was going to do the rap portions of that song as Sonic, and then I thought I'd team up with KW because it's a Sonic project. Of course, KW is my first choice for the chorus. And considering that's where Sonic meets the character of 9, I thought, hey, all right, we'll do. You'll become 9, and I'll be Sonic. So that was the idea. Within I think about like 2 or 3 days before March ended, so right about the time I was planning to you know, I was finishing writing the song and recording it, well, not recording it, I didn't get that far. There was a lot more, the song itself is, the rap portion is much longer than I give it credit for, so it's kind of like a half-written thing right now. But as I was writing it, KW decided, completely understandably, because we were just talking about songs being out of one person's range versus another, so we said, sorry, just trying to where the song's coming from. If I get copyrighted for that, I'll be I'll be annoyed. Oh, there it is. Okay. What was I saying? So I'm wearing a black dress ahead of me. That is bold in this weather. My goodness. Then again, I am still wearing my same sweatpants, so who am I to judge, honestly? Anyway, what I was going with, yes. So you said that because we've been talking about voice ranges and such, and a particular singer from the next episode of Camp Creek regarding choice of song for that specific character's range, which wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact there was a talent show specifically trying to showcase those things, and that was not meant to be one of the acts that was comedically fumbled. But yeah, that's we've just been talking about that, and I guess some of that was still weighing on her mind because she decided that the song was not within her range and decided to drop out. Now I could have gotten someone else to do this, but for some reason I decided instead, okay, I'm going to go to my backup. I'm going to make the trilogy of the Aaron Fraser Nash original songs turned parodies, because I love the idea of turning a song by a parody artist into a parody. And decided instead to, you know, because it was another Princess Peach song, to go with Emily and Milene. I've already talked about that whole thing. But the point is that the song Empire State of Mind nearly was the inspiration for those reasons. And it was something that I've been listening to very specifically, you know, roughly on the time before. Okay, so now I'll drop that for a moment and we'll go back to the quiz, which this time proceeded much as per normal. The aunt that was on the, I believe, the cruise last time was back. My cousin had once again been swapped out, I suppose, so we're still down a member. But you know, we had our usual table formation, kind of. Because yeah, my dad and I don't normally sit next to each other, I don't think, because normally he's on the other side. We arranged on one side it was going to be the sports people, my dad and my other aunt, and then the dingbat people, which honestly became everyone at a certain point, because they always give you time for the dingbats at the beginning, and we kind of breezed through a lot of them. In fact, there's one that my dad actually guessed correctly in a different quiz that that came back again, because I assume that they're, you know, they're trying their best. You know, there's only so many, I guess, dingbats that are submitted to that particular site. And I suppose, you know, probably better than, you know, trusting AI with the process, for example. Which, interesting enough, does come up at a certain point. Because one of the big things at the end, actually, was there was a question that was, what is the largest carnivore native to the UK? Now, we don't have exactly a lot of, you know, large animals in general over here. We're not, you know, exempt from having them, but, you know. So, really, the answer that was given was a badger. Some people put down wildcat as an example because, again, we're thinking small at this point. Also, just based on the fact that that badgers are in fact omnivores. Now, according to what the to one of the host's AI assistant. Even though badgers belong to the family of Carnivorae, they were counted as omnivores, which personally feels like cheating on the part of animal scientists, let's say, because surely the premise of having an omnivore classification is because you don't fit in the box of carnivore or herbivore, surely. So, what was kind of the point? Or then again, I guess it was sort of like Beastars in a sense, where, you know, in that entire society, the whole commentary revolves around the idea of carnivores and herbivores living together. But the only times they gloss the subject of omnivores is when it comes to hybrid species later down the line, and the imbalance that does, you know, between their two particular instincts, and that being you know, a risk involved. So, you know, I guess you could say not the best omnivore representation? I don't know. That's like I've said before, Beastars is a very interesting series for a number of reasons, including that one. But yeah, they also flip-flop between the idea of like particular instincts mattering, to be honest. There's one like side episode towards the very end that's like, yes, only canines understand the urge to chase a ball. Meanwhile, the rest of the series, I must contain all of my different instincts. I cannot embrace this side of me. Or, you know, I am a wolf and I must fight. Anyway, whatever. I'm getting off topic. Point is, badger became a controversial answer, which made us spend a long time going through what exactly we're supposed to count as, and I believe in the end the point got voided. Which is fair, because we didn't put badger or wildcat, so we benefited from that situation. Just, you know, watching the watching the madness go down, let's say. It's probably about as heated as you know, random local pub quizzes ever get, honestly. Which is to say, not much. But yeah, most of the rest of it was smooth sailings. As per usual, there were you know, a couple of dingbats that took forever to figure out. Like one of them was just, you know, the word knee, Knee, and then a fraction, and then underneath the fraction there was all the different mathematical operators. Now we thought this was going to be no joint operation, because I said, you know, Operación Matemática, and then my dad confirmed that yes, that is how you say it in English as well. He said that they are, that all of them together, they are the different operators. But the problem was, of course, that, you know, most of the time with fractions on there, usually in those dingbats they represent, like, you know, a preposition of some kind, like on, for example, you know, which actually end up being the correct answer, because the answer was neon signs. Neon signs. Now we almost said some of these aren't signs, they're operators, you know, like a thumbs and fingers situation. Plus and minus apparently are signs, but times are divided by are not. Apparently. I'm pretty sure that we, you know, that in Spanish, you know, we call them all signos, but, you know, that might just, again, you know, not the most reliable, I suppose. It's always kind of interesting how, you know, once you study in primary school in one place and then go to another entirely, you realize that, you know, there are some things that, yes, they've given you the foundation for, but then you realize, you know, some of the stuff that people would consider to be the most basic, you don't actually have. I don't know, like, for example, I can still name most of the provinces, well, at least autonomous regions in Spain, and a lot of the provinces. Could not tell you all the counties in the country that I currently live in. So there is that. And I'm not counting the fact that I can name all 50 states, because that was a childhood obsession. That was not geography class, that doesn't count. Yeah, so so with that, don't know. So we didn't start a second flame war over that, which is just as well. Deciding which way to go. There's no pavement there, so I'll continue this way. Okay. All right. But yeah, any other standout moments? Another joint dingbat was one that was, very hard to read because it was all a bunch of letters, very shrunken down. My mum identified that the word camouflage was almost there. I then made sure to find the spelling, and it's like, oh, then she realized, oh, it's all the alternate letters. So the answer, because the other word we didn't find in there was blessing, so it was blessing in disguise. That was one of the middle ones that took, half the game rather than the full time. And most of the others we just kind of, shuffle through. It's interesting because, we've got to the point now where with dingbats we can actually look at a number of them and get them immediately. So it's kind of like, in the Hunger Games where the first big encounter for everyone is always around the cornucopia. There's always the the idea of do you run to get your supplies that you could use for the rest of the game, or and risk having to partake in the most lethal bloodbath of every edition of Hunger Games, or do you run away, try to find some other stuff, and risk having a worse time later if you lack the resources that the other surviving tributes have. Not meant the surviving tributes are also probably the most capable fighters as a result of everything, so, again, all part of it. So yeah, big questions, as you can imagine. But yeah, it's kind of like that, where, there's always the cornucopia moments in the dingbats where everyone is quick firing a bunch of stuff. My mum has barely got the pen at this point, and we're already saying different things oh, this one's this one, this one's this one, this one's this one. And then after a bit it calms down. I will say though, we managed to, I think, clear like all but 5 of them out of 20 in the first bit, and then another couple later on. So most of the time, outside of solving dingbats, we were actually trying to think of like the specific 3: Blessing in Disguise, Neon Signs, and a different one that I don't remember what it actually was. And actually, I say that we took like the half the game, whatever. Actually, it didn't, because we finished half the game through. It took half the time that we were solving to get Blessing in Disguise. I should have specified. I should have said it that way. Because yeah, that was. We didn't get all of them right in the end, because there are always, obviously trying to, solve what some other random person on the internet decided was, how those things would go down. And, but depending on if the hosts were lenient on you. Actually, there was one of them where it was, it said NA plus CL, and then it was like burn and bruise. So I thought it was salt in the wound, even though it wasn't on. It was on the wound. The plus sign actually meant that it was add. So again, plus sign. I know I realized as I said it, but it was add insult to injury. which honestly I think is better. But Salt in the Wound did in fact, I think, get a half point, which is what we put down, so that's great. But yeah, we actually, yeah, I went back to my book during the breaks, because we thought we'd given it our best shots to all the dingbats. So the thing is that you can go back and correct and check all the different things, or you can discuss certain answers if it comes up. Like, for example, I remembered from like way back in the day, there was a book that I read about snakes that, I thought said that the boa constrictor was the largest snake in the world. It's the anaconda, but we did go back and forth. And ultimately, my aunt, being the stubborn stick to her guns person that she is, paid off this time. Sometimes it doesn't work that way, but but sometimes, yeah, this time it did. There was also at one point where I almost made a goof even larger than the Christina Perri one from 2 months ago. And that was, which planet shares its name with an element of a periodic table. Which, I blame Stephen Fry for this one, because there's a particular part, because Uranus, the Lord of the Sky, becomes Uranus in Roman mythology. And at one point there was a joke in Mythos, the book, that specifies that Uranus was, because he's the sky, he's buried underground, so that, he's away from his source of power. But of course, they then said, oh, some people say that, his source of power decided to, seeped into the earth. But of course, not to worry, because, there is no creature that is on Earth that is stupid enough to harness the power of uranium. So I was thinking Uranus, Uranus, uranium. Which of course then my dad immediately stepped in, being like, no, what the heck, it's Mercury. Which of course it is Mercury. The second I heard it's like, yeah, duh, obviously. I should have known that instantly. Just because of course it's the first one people go through when they're listing the planets. So of course I should have known about that one. So yeah, he saved my skin there. I think there were a couple of other, with the other quiz questions, like there's always a couple of ones that like I know that no one else does, and then most of the time it's ones that everyone else knows that I don't. Particularly the music round. Now, the music round is usually the part where I, have to like tune off. This time the theme was duets. And so we had to name both of the artists involved in a certain duet, which is, what there was one situation where I didn't know either one of them that I should have done, which was the Everything Has Changed song by Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran. My mum got Ed Sheeran, so we got like that other point there. Well, I suppose she asked me about like his name, and I said, what with the red hair? I said Ed Sheeran. So yeah, that one was there. And also I listened to a whole lot actually, but now I think about it, even the line Everything Has Changed is rife for parody, so I might have to bank that one for the future, Anyway, what was I going to say? But that wasn't the one where that I remember the most, because there are a couple of other ones where it's a lot of the artists are from way back when, and I wouldn't know. I knew the songs, some of the songs, but I didn't know specifically who was involved in them. Dug a Break in My Heart, I could have told you Elton John, but not the other artist who was on the track as well, for example. But yeah, some of the other ones just be like, okay, nope, you can all debate this one. Nat King Cole comes up quite a lot actually, from one session to the next. And to be fair, for some time, Katy Perry also did. It seemed like Katy Perry was their go-to modern musician for a time, even though this time it with Taylor Swift. And as Dad pointed out, if we don't know a random female artist in a particular song, we should guess Taylor Swift because reasons. So, yeah. But in any case, the song in question, it was number 9, and again, every now and then, because they've realized over time that, you know, AC/DC aside, that, you know, having a couple of songs for other generations that are not the prime demographic of the quiz itself, definitely, you know, keeps us from zoning out in the final round of the quiz and just being like, well, I'm even more useless now than I normally am. So then number 9 comes around and something, you know, instantly changes. Remember how I said that Empire State of Mind was on my mind, and how, you know, I almost used the parody for last month and everything, so, you know, it was something that would click instantly. Well, guess what song number 9 was? So I was able to put, you know, Alicia Keys and Jay-Z immediately. There were a number of times, I think, that I was, like, you know, asked to write down specifically, like, because most of the time I'm sitting, like, opposite my aunt, and I whisper very quietly, so she normally just, like, hands me the pen. I try to mimic her handwriting as best as possible, you know, in all caps. So, yeah, that was that time. That was that time. So, so yeah, as it turns out, Empire State of Mind did, in fact, come in handy, in a way that I wasn't expecting, which is not necessarily the case for certain other things. Now, the quiz definitely tries to, you know, reflects current events some of the time, even though their round on politics this time actually focused on a few, like, other historical political moments rather than, you know, all current things. Some of them are current, some of them are both, actually. Like, which country has the oldest constitution still in effect, which is actually the US. We're not the first to have a constitution, but they are the first. They've maintained it for as long as they have. First question was one that I knew from history class. You know, what governing body was founded in 1945 to promote peace? That was, of course, the UN. Which, you know, if you've been watching my channel for years and years, you'll know that that I made a song about that, about the conference involved in creating the UN, and also a couple of other ones as well. To Elton John, in fact. That was an Elton John Crocodile Rock parody. But yeah, it was originally came out a day before my birthday, and then afterwards was remastered a few years later and re-recorded. Did I upload the? No, I did. Yeah. Anyway, but what didn't come up this time, in terms of current events, was, you know, the day before the quiz actually happened, is when the Artemis II, the space mission, reached the furthest point away from Earth that any human has ever traveled. They quite literally boldly went where no man has gone before. And now 3 men have gone there, and 1 woman. So, there you are. And we thought that was going to come up. So we researched the names of the astronauts, which was Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen, and one other that I've forgotten now. But you know, there is a distance of 406,000 and something kilometers, and according to my aunt, 252,000 miles. We both had the same idea to research that, and we talked about it after the quiz because it never came up. You know, there were also a few of my relatives were also thinking, like, why was it, you know, why was the mission called Artemis? Of course, Artemis being the twin sister of Apollo makes sense. Although you'd think with space having a more Roman inclination to it, as evidenced by Uranus and uranium, you think they would go with Diana, considering Apollo, of course, being interchangeable. But you know, but you know me. I definitely lean more towards the Greek version anyway. So no complaints from me. But yeah, one of the ones that again I knew instantly, and I thought about like the joke that Stephen Fry made about this whole subject. About time that Artemis apparently sat Zeus down and asked for various different things, like for example to never be there's too many cars. To never be pursued by a man, to be able to remain celibate forever. Several other things. I think it was just like an entourage of hunters, maybe that she came up across that idea later. I'm not sure. And then like one joke that he makes is Zeus goes like, "My goodness, daughter, you don't wish for the moon, do you?" And then she goes, "Oh, that's a great idea, I love the moon as well." Because yes, Artemis is the goddess of the moon. Which makes you wonder why they called the original missions Apollo in the first place. I'm guessing because Apollo is more famed for having the sun chariot specifically. So he's more accustomed to, I guess, soaring the skies. I honestly really don't know. Maybe just because the fact that I think the real thing is that Apollo didn't have any celestial bodies named after him. But then again, I don't think Diana did either. You know what? I don't know. I'll have to look into that further. So I both completely understand and also question the name of Artemis for the mission. But I didn't bring any of this up because it never came up. Oh, well. So that's that. We're going to the moon again, and that fact has largely been ignored, including by me, because I kind of just sneezed that idea out at the end of this Walking Wednesday. So I guess there is that. Get ready for some more space programming in the future. Maybe even some from me. We'll see. I do get the space madness from time to time. As long as I recall which planets are named after what and what they share their names with, That's always nice to remember as a very obvious fact. Again, thanks Dad for that. I said it so confidently as well. I just smiled at him. I was like, I know this one. Yeah, give Dad this one to me, of course. Yep. Of course, I'm going to stand here and be awesome for about 2 seconds. Oh, but of course, I almost wrapped this up without telling you the actual result. How did all of this work out? All of the, mistakes we made, the dingbats that we were, confident with, but ended up not being the correct options, or, and a couple of, correction points or things that we changed last minute that would, that didn't make the cuts like we always do. How'd this result? Well, the end result, I will say there is a new team that I believe came fourth. Never seen them before, never heard their name before this point, and it looked like they were a crowd of relatively young men, which considering that they got a bunch of questions designed for what I presume is not their generation. That they did exceptionally well on their own without that variation. Well, I say variation without the lack of variation required for most pub quiz victories. But yeah, so I don't know. That was a surprise to me. They're definitely a new group to watch out for. But I suppose the threat is not as imminent to us because our team ended up with the grand position of third. We have gone down a place again from last time when we came second. Oh wait, actually no, we didn't. I was going to say we did become first the time before that. No, we didn't. That was the Christina Perry month that we didn't do well on that one. So yeah, that was so yeah, bronze medal this time for us, metaphorically, because they only give prizes out to the winning team, which I didn't see them like handing out actually. Maybe because it was the usual team, the usual winners I keep mentioning. Maybe they just did I? Sorry, I feel like I almost no. I got stung there for a second. That was weird. I'll have to look at that a bit more thoroughly later, once I've cut the cameras. Maybe I'll do what I did with my car one time, and I just, you know, point up and my scalp and just go woo like that. We did that once to try to check to see if there was oil leakage at one point. That was not this week. That was still funny though. But yeah, that's kind of it really. So usual team won. I guess they stayed behind and got their prize separately. I did get a chance to meet them and talk to them last time, but yeah, not this time. And I've forgotten what they all look like. They're always just a face in the crowd that's like, okay, like, where are you? We also all move around. I forgot to mention that this time, the team that came second was, in fact, I think it was a team that we actually marked. But they took our old spot, not just in the quiz rankings, but also actually in the seating plan. Instead of having like partially like cushioned, you know, chairs that were in there, we had, honestly, not gonna lie, some pretty terrible seats. I mean, I had to also, you know, sit with my legs to the side, facing outwards, because I couldn't, you know, get them underneath the table properly because there wasn't that much space. I guess it is part of the, it is like, I guess, the drawback of how popular the quiz actually is. Because remember, through basically word of mouth alone, like I don't think I've done like any sort of, you know, big ad campaign or anything like that. You know, Lord knows if they did that I would help out. You know, I haven't mentioned the name of the establishment. I've walked past it every week, but well, every month that we do this. But I haven't mentioned the name of the establishment. I haven't said any of the team names. I haven't directly mentioned the quiz team whatsoever or anything like that. So it's definitely, you know, I don't think anyone is advertising them, but they kind of don't need to, because the venue is so small that the fact that we like fill it up already with all the teams that want to join and everything, I'm pretty sure like nowadays you have to book the quiz tickets like months in advance, so you can actually even like have a spot, which of course isn't accounting for, you know, us deciding which members of the teams are going to even be present at any given month. Because, you know, a lot of us have either go away for a long time like me or for a short time like them. So it's never sure. So that's but yeah, that was all through word of mouth. Like, we joined the quiz through word of mouth. I mean, obviously we've loved quizzes anyway, because that was one thing that actually I told the story before. Like, my mum used to arrange them at my secondary school when she was chair of the PTA there, and you know, that's where the infamous 50 Shades of Fun and 6 Shades of Grey story came from. If you don't remember, that was like when the 50 Shades of Grey movie came out, and 2 separate teams named themselves after the movie in different ways. So yeah, that was always, you know, seeing as that was in a secondary school, you can tell it was mostly for the parents. Although I did in fact take part, and our group was called the same thing as it were today. So, you know, our quiz team is very much, you know, a historical thing. So it was a no-brainer for us to sign up. Also because during lockdown we hosted neighborhood quizzes quite a lot, which is where I donned my top hat and tailcoats as the quizmaster, which people seem to like. I know that at some point in the future, people are going to ask, "Hey, what did you do during during the COVID-19 lockdown?" And I'll just be say, well, I donned my hat and coattails and went where the people needed me most. Because I definitely, that was the year where it was cemented. I am definitely best served entertaining the masses in some way. That's where my biggest passions and talents have always lied. So there you have it. But yeah, like I was saying, even taking part in quizzes, even if you're not the one hosting them, again, is always, it's sometimes even better because you get to be that stress-free scenario. Although in terms of me, I like to add the showmanship. I had a bunch of videos there, one of which became one of the most viewed videos on the channel because, of course, it did. But yeah, it was our bread and butter. But for a lot of other people, that particular environment that has been fostered there, the sense of competition we all have, but in a friendly manner, minus to the usual team, minus to them, we all groan whenever they win. But aside from them, friendly competition manner and everything, that's that's the kind of thing that develops organically through word of mouth alone. And I know it's just a fun thing. Just a fun thing with fun people, arranged by other fun people, having a fun time. So yeah, even if this wasn't, I guess the most the most intriguing of the quizzes, or the most or the crazy the December one was, there's always a few moments in there. A few moments where your independent internet research is completely fumbled, and the stuff that you were doing that was completely unrelated to the quiz itself ends up coming in the most handy, in a moment where you didn't think you would need it. And that's just the way it goes. So yeah, with that, please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And on that note, until next time, farewell.